Hi, today we're going to be dividing a decimal by a decimal. The goal is to make the divisor a friendly number to divide by. In order to do this, we need to think fractions. We need to get rid of that decimal in the divisor so we have a nice friendly whole number to work with. And we can do this if we think about fractions and making equivalent fractions using our multiples of 10 to multiply by. Take, for instance, 45 hundredths divided by 3 tenths. If we could just multiply that 3 tenths by the power of 10, 1 power of 10, we could shift the decimal one place to the right and have a whole number. And remember with fractions, whatever you do to your denominator, you must do to your numerator. So we're going to multiply both of those numbers, numerator and denominator, by 1 power of 10, and we will end up with 4 5/10 divided by 3. Dividing by 3 is a much friendlier number, and it's okay to have a decimal in your dividend. So when we divide, we can simply line up the decimal, bringing it straight up. We can divide as usual. We know that 3 times 10 will give us 30. But I'm going to write the 10 at the top, and you'll see why, because it'll make it easier to add my partial quotients together later. Then I know 3 times 5 will give me 15, and I put my 5 at the top. And now I can add my partial quotients together to get my final quotient of 1 5/10. The goal is to make your divisor that friendly number that's a whole number to divide by. But sometimes you'll see that your divisor is in the hundredths. That means in order to get that decimal, shifting it to the right, 2 powers of 10 to make it a whole number. So I'm going to multiply that by 2 powers of 10, which is 100. And whatever I do to my denominator, I have to do to my numerator. And that will also shift the decimal 2 places to the right. And I finally have my new fraction that's a lot easier to work with. 24 6/10 divided by 6. So when I divide as usual, but remember, bring that decimal straight up. And think 246 divided by 6, that would go 40 times. So I'm going to put my 40 at the top as a partial quotient. When I subtract, I get 6 left, and 6 divided by 6 is 1. So my final quotient is 4 1/10. And I am left with no remainder. And that is the goal when you're dividing with decimals, not to have a remainder. So I'd like you to pause the video, and I want you to just try a few. Just set up the equation so you would show how you would shift the decimal. Don't try to solve. When you're ready, start the video again and see how you did. Hopefully you did well. Discuss this with your teacher or look over it carefully by yourself. Pause as needed. Now, what happens when you have a decimal divided by another decimal and you start dividing and you find out you've used all your numbers and you have a remainder of 2? Well, when we're dividing by decimals, we can't, let me put a 5 here, we cannot have a remainder left over. So what do? We add a 0. We can keep adding zeros as long as we need to. And remember, these are equivalent numbers. 6 2/10 is equivalent to 6 20 hundredths. So just add a 0 on and keep dividing until you don't have a remainder. Pause the video and study this or talk about it with your teacher. Now, here are 3 for you to try. Remember the tips we talked about. First, make the divisor a whole number by shifting the decimal by multiplying the divisor by however many powers of 10 it takes to shift. Divide as usual, but bring that decimal point up. And if you have a remainder, add a 0 to the edge and keep adding zeros till you no longer have a remainder. So pause the video, give it a try, actually solve these, and let's see how you did. Here are the final answers. Hopefully you are on the right track.